Folks, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show. Multiple drumming techniques are taught by my guest. Machine gun, rapid fire propulsion of the Commodores and Creative Source. Sussex, Buddha, Motown, Columbia. The life of my guest. Back in the game when studio work was prevalent and inventive producers and arrangers like Quincy Jones, David Mathews and David Axelrod knew the kind of drummer they would need to fit the date. My guest today is still flying around on his kit, willing to play straight ahead, intermeshed with Midwest RnB fills. He learned on the bandstand with King Curtis and Freddy King, the experience of the blues circuit that existed at one time in this country. Detroit, Chicago, Los Angeles, Lionel Ritchie, Chuck Rainey, Etta James, David Clayton Thomas, Letta Mbulu, Eddie Kendricks, and social justice performer Harry Belafonte. His pocket mate is Chuck Rainey. They were a duo for so much music that crossed over genres, was played by real human beings with the ultimate goal to make the leader sound as good as possible. Today, people sample his drum breaks, and who knows, maybe there's some university that teaches his technique, but he's just a cat who wants to have fun and swing. Be it in East St. Louis, Illinois, Saginaw, Michigan, north of the border in Canada, or all over the world. Kenneth Spider Rice, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Well, thank you, Jake, and thank you for having me.
You know, I wanted to.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah, and it is an honor to talk to you. I think it's just so important for you to talk to. I know you probably have students and you talk to them a lot about technique and feel, but I would love you to talk about how you, what the blues circuits, if in fact you did do the blues circuit with guys like Freddie King, King Curtis. How playing in bowling alleys and hockey halls and with different lineups with different types of music helped you develop confidence that you could have your own individual sound.
Well, let's start with King Curtis. King Curtis was very inspirational. I started working with King Curtis when I left Detroit. And I left Detroit for good. This was back in 1966, 1967. And I knew that I could play drums. I didn't know how much talent I had until I started putting myself out there and moving in certain circles. And playing with King Curtis taught me that you don't have to be a prolific reader to make it in this business. In other words, a lot of things are based on how well a person can read. Curtis told me, he said, Spider, he said, you can read a little bit, but you can play your ass off. And he said, that's going to take you a long way.
Mm-hmm.
He said, I would rather have you than a guy that can read his butt off. He said, because after all, music is a feeling. It's what you feel.
Right.
And it's not always on paper. So that gave me a lot of encouragement. And that's when I met guys like Chuck Rainey, Cornell Dupree, Eric Gale. And all these guys really liked the way I play, and I was blown away, because like I said before, I knew I had some talent I didn't know. I really didn't know that I could do the things that I have accomplished in my career.
How old? Yeah, no, I go ahead. Tell the story. Go ahead.
I remember in my second year with King Curtis, Chuck Rainey called me and said, "Hey, look, Belafonte is looking for a drummer." And I'm like, "What? Why are you calling me?" And he says, "You would fit perfectly. Your style of play, the way you feel music, you would fit perfectly with Harry Belafonte." And I'm like, I had always been in New York maybe a couple of years, fresh out of Detroit. And Chuck said, "Look, here's what you do." He said, "You already have the job." I said, "Already have the job?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "We've already told Harry about you. And Harry trusts our opinion." I said, "Wow, this is deep." This is real deep. So he said, "Now look, when you call Harry, we're all making the X amount of dollars. I'm not going to repeat the figures."
Sure.
And the most that I had ever made was $250 a week playing with King Curtis. So I called Harry, and he asked me how much I wanted. And I told him, he said, "Okay, sure, rehearsal starts tomorrow." I was like, "Oh my God." I went into rehearsal. Now, keep in mind now, I'm from the Motor City.
Sure.
Where we were full of Motown and jazz clubs. There was not a lot of third world music going on in Detroit at that time. We had a Latino community, but I knew nothing about it back in the day.
Let me just, you brought up something really fast. Third world, meaning more like island music or with the
Exactly.
Okay, got it. Continue.
It's like, exactly, African music, music from Puerto Rico, music from Brazil.
Got it, yeah.
So, that's what they called it then.
Yeah.
It's called something else now. So, I go into this situation not really knowing, and I tell you, working with Harry Belafonte was the most gratifying musical experience of my career.
Why?
In that particular situation, I had an opportunity to play all different types of music in one setting. They don't do that anymore. You go and play R&B, you play R&B. If you want to play jazz, you play jazz. But with Harry, there was people from Africa, Mbulu, from Brazil. There was Silverino Dio Riviera,
right,
called Sabuca for short. There was Angel Allende from Puerto Rico. There was Paul Crusher Bennett from Trinidad. So we had a little small United Nations.
wait, hold on for a second. Savuka, he wasn't playing with Belafonte. That was just a Brazilian cat that was there at the time you played with.
No, all these people were in Belafonte's group.
No, wait. Let's go through this. This is okay because here's the conundrum I have with Belafonte's records because they're all over the place. I just found out, I guess, because of you passing on the knowledge, like you're actually on 2 record dates, but at the time, accompanists didn't always get the credit. You didn't know who's right. So
that's right.
So who?
That's right.
Who is it? Go back again because that's a mind-blowing band.
Okay. We had Letta Mbulu and Cassius Semenya.
Oh.
They were from South Africa.
Mm-hmm.
We all know who Letta is. Kaiser Semenya he's a saxophone player, and he was in Hugh Masekela's group called the Union of South Africa.
Yes.
And
yes.
Letta and Kaiser were married.
Yes, that's right. Okay, very
then
good.
Then we had Savuka. Savuka was from Brazil.
That dude was... I have a couple of his records. He was playing, like, the cuica. He was probably playing all those percussive instruments and the guitar.
Well, I tell you.
Yeah.
Here's the thing about Savuka.
Uh-huh.
Savuka played accordion, and he did a lot with his mouth. So he could imitate a cuica with his mouth.
Oh my! You know what? Oh, this is the spider web is just dropping serious now. Anyway, yeah, no, because the voice is in today's society, the voice is dominant as an instrument, which is it's a vocalese society now. But back then, Savuka really could use his voice to sound like a cuica. That's unbelievable.
Right, and he used his voice along with the accordion to create some unique sounds that I had never ever heard before in my life. And there was Angel Allende from Puerto Rico. Angel was a child protege.
Yes.
And he worked with Tito Puente when he was like 12, 13 years old.
At the Palladium?
Pardon?
At the Palladium in New York, or where?
I don't know. They were just doing jobs, I guess, and Angel was working alongside of Tito Puente.
And the rhythms
and those venues were.
Oh my gosh! And the rhythm section was Spiderweb and Chuck Rainey.
That was the first time that I went with Harry. Yes, it was Chuck Rainey, Cornell Dupree, Ralph McDonald, Jim Hunter, those guys. But I'm really focusing in on the following year with Harry only because.
Mm-hmm.
There were so many different people from so many different parts of the world. And I learned so much. That was the biggest musical experience in my life. And it's a funny thing. I got big ears. When you say you got big ears, that means that you can really hear.
Mm-hmm.
And I could play the calypso. I had no problem playing when somebody told me to play. The problem that I had was I could not leave the Motown feel and the Motown pickups out of the music. That's the way I was taught how to play. But now, little did I know, I didn't know until years later that Harry really liked that. He really liked that Motown feel infused with the calypso and the reggae and the soca. And I didn't know exactly what to play where, and these guys were so helpful to me. They embraced me and they said, well, look, Spider, this is what you have to play. Go ahead and play what you normally play, but make sure that you put this little that little calypso feel in there.
Right.
And I said, okay, So, and after that, it was like, wow. Kaluka showed me how to play a samba. Angel taught me about Latin music. And Crusher, Paul Bennett, taught me about calypsos and reggaes. And I had 2 weeks to learn this stuff now.
No, but this is but Belafonte. I look a lot at this time period. Maybe a few years late, early 70s, as this intermeshing of, like you said, the Brazilian bossa rhythms, the Latin rhythms, the inner city blues intermeshed with the jazz. Okay. But in many ways, Belafonte was he was an acoustic trendsetter of world music. I mean, he was
Absolutely.
right. I mean, there's no doubt about that. And you're kind
Absolutely.
of you're the first person to sort of, even though you see his records and you see Jay Berliner and Ralph McDonald, it's those records that don't cite the accompanists because that band, I mean, that's a world band. It's insane. That's insane.
Absolutely.
Holy mama.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And now, I didn't find out until later that, but here's one of the things that, back in the day, you had to realize that when you look at people like Eric Belafonte, you could not make that at home. Because people's tastes change.
Right.
Right. And you had to really understand that. And because I know a lot of people that got bitter because it was like, well, Harry let us go and blah, 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 and all this negative stuff. And my whole thing was, you can't look at it that way. Look what Harry did. He brought us together. And we learned together.
Absolutely. And then you move on. And then you go on and yeah. Go ahead.
If you were paying attention, you saw that Harry took care of some tremendous business. He was teaching us at the same time. So I learned a lot. And I said, just be thankful that we had that experience. You have to be thankful that we had that experience. But I was bringing all that up to say that years later, I was told by Crusher and Angel that whenever Harry was putting together a new group, he would always bring in the live recording that we did, Harry Belafonte live at the O'Keefe Center in Toronto.
Right. Yes.
And he would say, "This is what I want." And it was all the stuff that we were all in training learning how to do. See, we didn't have an opinion. We were young enough that all this stuff, we absorbed it all. And we played it exactly the way that he wanted it, And that was the greatest musical experience of my life. You can't buy that kind of experience.
No, it's like me talking to you right now. I mean, this is not measured in monetary compensation. This is like enlightenment for me and for many other. And I look at younger artists. This is the issue, Spider, and I want you to talk about this. This is so important because you have this thing like with Jay-Z, and I'm not trying to bag on these guys because a lot of them came out of really, really rough areas. They have street credentials. They grew up at a different time in America. But Belafonte, the thing about him was that, yeah, he was a businessman and he made a lot of money, but there was a teaching component to it as well because he wanted to keep the traditions alive and he wanted to pass it on to you guys so you could pass it on to future generations.
Exactly.
And I guess that's, as a journalist and not a musician, I just wonder, because of the lack of value in the accompanist in our society now, because of like the idea that the individual has superseded the music in a lot of ways. You have the guy up front doing the rap or doing the hip hop or whatever, and then in the background you got all these accompanists. You don't know who they are, and they never. And I just wonder if that teaching element, that passing of the torch, is really what is what's lacking today. Is that the heart of somebody to say, I'm going to let you go in a couple of months, but when you go, you're going to have a PhD in life. That to me is what is kind of missing with the younger generation, especially of African American artists in general. I'm curious as to your take about that.
Well, rap has its place. I'm not a fan of rap. As a matter of fact, I get a check every now and then from Jay-Z and Too Short. sample my stuff.
Yeah, you're
So
sampled all over the place.
But here's the thing, Jake.
Yeah.
I worked at a club here in Detroit. It's called Burke's Marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
And they, these clubs don't pay any money. But this was my way of giving back.
Exactly.
Okay?
Yeah.
So I was going there every Wednesday and Thursday, and I would have all types of drummers come in, all kind of students, people that were at U of M, Michigan State, Wayne State University. They would all come in, and they would be like, wow, Freddy, you really sound good. It's like, wow, man, you sound just like y'all. Oh, man, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, well, thanks a lot, but I have so much to learn. And they said, what else can you learn? You're playing everything. And my whole thing is, once you become satisfied, you cease to be creative. So I'm never, ever satisfied with anything that I play.
I love that. I love that motto. I mean, have you been using that motto for a while? That's pretty impressive. Once you get satisfied, you lose.
Once you become satisfied, you cease to be creative.
Creativity ceases to exist. Unbelievable. No, and it's true. Yeah, go ahead. But it's hard for younger cats. They don't get that because they see you being able to play chops on all genres.
Here's the thing.
Yeah.
They come up in an electronic age.
Yep.
So where all you have to do is push a button and you get what you want. And they're not passionate about it as we are. Because we slept, we ate, we lived, we talked music 24/7, 365 days a year. We paid our dues. That's what we did. There was no drum machines. There was no electronic keyboards. And these players today, they have not put in the time that we put in.
Absolutely.
They have not put in the time. So, to give an example, I was talking about Birch. And I had, just a real funny story, I had this one guy coming in from Michigan State University. It's open mic. Anybody can come up and play. Come on up and do what you want to do.
I'm coming up there.
So this one particular guy got on the drums, and let me tell you, he had tremendous hands. Looked at him playing, you see nothing but a blur. He's moving that fast. And he's loud. He was abusive. He was not sensitive to the music. That's what I saw. So when he came off of the stage, he said, he had his chest out. He says, "Well, what do you think?" And I said, "Well, there's no doubt that you have the chops that it takes, that you have the hands, but you need to learn how to play." And he looked at it and he got flushed and he said, "How dare you tell me that? I have a master's degree in music."
Yeah, right. Like,
how dare you tell me that?
Oh, man, yeah.
And I said, what you have to realize is that when you're on the stage, there's sometimes 5 or 6 other people that's involved. So you have to be sensitive to everybody on that stage, especially if there's a vocalist out front, there's a horn player. You have to be able to give everybody what they want and put yourself into it as well. And that way, everybody's happy. That's not an easy task. That's not an easy task for a guy that has not ever had that experience. But to make a long story short, this guy stormed out of the club. I didn't see him for a year. And when he came back, he was a totally different player. Yeah. So he comes back into the club, and he sits in, and he's a totally different player.
Wow.
He's sensitive to the music. He's not playing as much, and he sounded really good. And when he came off, I hugged him. I said, you know what, you really sound good. And he said, oh, thanks, Spider. He said, thanks a lot, Spider. I really appreciate that. Which means that he didn't like what I said, but he thought about it. He might have even discussed it with someone. And they said, you know what, Spider's right. And he did his homework, and when he came back, he was a much better player. Now, that particular scenario happened a lot. It happened over and over and over and over and over. And when the players came back, they were different players. That was very gratifying to me because I felt like I made a difference in the way some of these guys think, the way that they play, and their approach to it. And that really made me feel good, that they were able to come back and tell me that. And I've sat and watched the progression of a lot of drummers that couldn't even play, that didn't have a degree, and that just picked it up by ear, And I watched the progression of these players. I was at this particular club for 10 years, and it really made me feel good to know that I was making some kind of difference, but there's so much electronic music out today. It's just so much stuff that, if I can touch 5 or 6, then that's fine, and so that's why I say we have to carry it on. Belafonte passed it to us, and I'm trying to pass it on to other people.
No, I mean, you bring up, there's so much going on in my head right now. I just, relating it back, it's like, so you have a couple of these generations that have been lost because they've basically been raised on electronic music. And it's going to be imperative that, because you're the guys that are going to plant the seeds for a new cycle of life. Because the other thing I wanted to talk to you about, I've been transcribing all these interviews that I've done, and one of the things, and we're going to listen to a piece of music in a little bit. One thing that was really prevalent about your drumming, especially in the Midwest, East St. Louis, Detroit, I mean, you did not have an amplified bass. There was maybe an upright bass, and maybe you'd see some kind of small amplification device, but the bass drum was very prevalent, and there was so much space within the music. And now you have like that subwoofer bass that sucks out all the room in the music. And it's like, what I'm trying to say? Like I mean, when you listen to some of the live Spiderweb stuff, is like, I mean, it's I can't describe it. And and it to me, it's like, you bring up this other thing about you bring up something about needing a master's degree. I mean, the times that people call up and say to great horn players like Lou Tabakin or something, they're like, we really expect people to have a master's degree in order to attend this conference. And it's like, since when do you need a master's degree to be able to? If you can get up on the stand with Joe Henderson and Elvin Jones and Zoot Sims and I think that's pretty good. But in our society now, experiential learning, street learning, is, I don't know, it was a lot more palpable back when you were growing up, and I just feel like the balance is way out of whack because...
Well, it is out of whack, and there are some, believe it or not, there are some parents of these students that understand that they're not going to get it in school.
Right.
Because what has happened on a couple of occasions is that guys drive up from Ann Arbor, they come to Detroit, they come from the University of Michigan, And I've talked to a couple parents who said, my son's a drummer, he's working on his master's, but I have to bring him here because I have to let him know that you're not going to get this in school. This is where it's at.
Absolutely.
This is where it's at. You have to come here. You have to come here and see it perform live to understand. And there are some parents that do that for their kids. This one particular guy, his father is a percussionist. So his father understood the need for his son to come to some of these old jazz clubs and listen. So that's where it's at. But like you say, the electronic aspect of it outweighs that. And we don't have the creativity that should be going around, that was around when Chuck and I were coming along.
Oh, Mike, I mean, and you guys, it's just like, there's a lot of things to point to. I mean, on the same time, you didn't, I want to go through this the right way, but I just was listening to my interview with Kenny Burrell, and I'm trying to figure out your generation, because he was talking about, Yusef Lateef, I think, was 10 years younger than him, or 10 years older than him. He came up with Barry Harris, Tommy Flanagan, and Elvin Jones, Donald Byrd. And then the next group below that was like Pepper Adams, and I forget who. But I'm like, where does Spider Webb fit into the Detroit mix? I mean, Ron Carter was from there, Kevin Toney was from there, but I'm like, where did Spider fit in? And let's paint that picture of that urban. Because, I mean, let's be honest. What you said about Belafonte is spot on. And it's the exact same thing. Like the idea of saying, okay, don't hang up your hang-ups. Don't be hemming and hawing about the fact that, he lets you go. Be thankful for what you learned. And the time period that you and Chuck, Cornell, Bernard, Purdy, the time period you guys went through, instead of, to me, it's a fantasy. I just feel like you should feel blessed that you went through it. I'm sure you do. But because the cities and the street rhythms and the street elements that provided those rhythms and all that immigration that didn't seem all that big a deal at the time from Brazil and Puerto Rico and Cuba. I mean,
exactly.
You were just paint a picture of Detroit, the clubs, the atmosphere, the crowds, and the
okay,
go ahead.
Okay, now Detroit. Let me tell you, back in the day. When I say back in the day, I'm saying late 50s, early 60s.
That's right.
See, I graduated from high school in 61. Well, in 62. But I was playing in clubs when I was 15.
Right.
And I was playing straight ahead jazz. Straight ahead jazz. I didn't play folk music at all. I didn't play Motown music at all. Because, like you said, back in those days, Tommy Flanagan, Ron Carter, that's what we were listening to. That's what we were listening to as teenagers. And back at that time, a lot of those players used to come to Detroit. Because if you got to Detroit, you was ready for New York.
That's right. That's right.
And when I was coming up, I was playing in a lot of the clubs here in Detroit. Detroit was full of jazz clubs.
Oh my God!
Full of organ trios, Jimmy Smith, Jimmy McGriff, those type of things. Guitar, organ, saxophone, drums.
I love. I just. My mom is from Saginaw, and you guys are roughly the same age, and I think Saginaw was the fifth at the time when she was growing up, was the fifth most popular city to live in the country, and Detroit was in the top five. Top five. It was just thriving. So unbelievable, man, unreal.
Yeah. I mean, Detroit was the place where you could go. It renamed the street to Rosa Parks Boulevard now, but it was called 12th Street.
Yeah.
You walk up and down 12th Street, there was a club on every other corner. And that's all you heard was organ trios, straight ahead jazz. You know? And that's what I came up playing. But that changed. That changed because here's another thing that I use a lot, is that the less notes you play, the more money you make. The more notes you play,
yeah,
the less money you make.
Yeah, that is why yeah, it has become frowned upon to be good at an instrument.
Well, I'm saying not really. But what has happened is that the chance for how many more notes you get into the avant-garde and the Elvin Jones type of stuff.
Right.
Those guys could play, man. I mean, my God, Elvin Jones is my guru. You know what I'm saying? But he didn't make a lot of money. He played a lot of notes. He and John Coltrane and all of them, they played a lot of notes, but they didn't make a lot of money.
But you know what? You want to know something? Elvin Jones was like you as a teacher, where he'd be down at some dumpy bar, transitioning out of Coltrane, you know, and taking the breather, coming back from Japan, and then he's got a bunch of young bucks in his band he's probably making $25 a night with them, because that's the values. That's the point of the Jake Feinberg show. Harry Belafonte. Right. Okay, Elvin Jones. Right. Elvin Jones didn't. I mean, listen. Ndugu Chancellor said it too. Ndugu, I mean, the guy had chops on the West Coast. He's like, I didn't want to be a starving genius, so he wound up in the studios and he wound up doing and making a lot of money. But that, and I mean, it's always out there. But you know, Elvin was like, I just want to pass it along. What's amazing to me is that you guys are still active and have all the potential, like you already do. You touch those 5 to 6 people a month, a year. That is, you know, because the King Curtis circuits and the Freddie Kings and those blues circuits, like that's what Wilton Felder said. He goes, B.B. King, those guys could play great jazz. Not many people even realize that because of the barriers that have come up in music these days. You know. I mean, go ahead. I mean, but Detroit, it's special to me. I'm a huge Detroit sports fan. And then for me to know, why did I ever fall in love with Detroit? Because my mom was from Saginaw, but beyond that, because there was an essence. There's an essence that is still there somewhere amidst all the degradation and the kind of depression and the empty city blocks. And I say, my God, but at one time, Spider was there, Phil Ranelin was there, Donald Byrd was there, and it was a smoking scene, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, well, you know, right. Detroit is suffering right now. Detroit was thriving back in the day, but make no mistake about it. Detroit is still producing phenomenal singers and phenomenal musicians. You know, it's still here. Wow. It's just that we're going through so much other stuff, and it overshadows what's really here deep down on the streets. You know? I mean, there's some terrific players here.
Yes.
There's some terrific singers here. And it always has been, and I think it always will be. You know? But it's just.
But hold on for a second. Okay, but no, and I believe you. But I say to myself, is it because there really isn't a commerce industry based around music anymore? Because these people have no identities. I mean, that's my like. I know they're dealing with when you say they're dealing with different issues. What issues are you? Is it just it was a happier, more soulful time with the organ clubs and.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, man. It was a happier time. We didn't have these issues. You know, the issues that are out here today, we didn't have those issues back then. You know, we didn't have You know, we had street lights, we had city services, we had all this other stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, right.
we had that. You know, so we just concentrated on playing music. That's all we did. When I came up, you know, if you wanted to be a hip guy and be in with everybody, you had to play a musical instrument. Because they got the girls. That's right. No, I mean, I feel you, man. You know, so in the block that I grew up in, this whole neighborhood, there was nothing but musicians and singers. I was brought up in the same area that Donna Ross was brought up in the Brewster Projects. I was brought up in the same area, you know, and you know, Elmer's not too far. Elmer's in Pontiac, him and Dad and Mel, you know, all those guys, you know, his brothers. It's still like that. It's still thriving, you know. You still have a lot of untapped talent here.
Wow, that's so nice to hear. So good to hear.
It's a funny thing, too, because American Idol, all those shows like that, you know, when they come to Detroit, they don't come to the city of Detroit. They go to the suburbs. They don't come to the city because that's where all the entertainment is. The average person on the street can blow one of those singers away immediately. You know, but they don't want that. And then they try to control it by saying, you know, you have to be a certain age. You cut it off at 21. You know, but there's still a lot of talent here in Detroit.
No, and it's like they just want to pacify people. They're not necessarily into expanding their minds. I mean, that's the shame of it, is that they should be in the city. I mean, they should be in there looking at the untapped talent. But it's I mean, and the other thing is that I was going to say before is that, you know, you guys could practice in woodshed all day because you were going out on the road. You'd have plenty of studio work, and now with the cost of living now, it's just really hard. I mean, you're probably paying $60 a month for an apartment or what? You know, who knows? It just was not that Yeah, I know you're laughing because people could go to San Francisco, the Bay Area, which, you know, was just rocking in the early 70s. You're paying, you know, $100 a month for an apartment, and you know, whatever. You get $2 for a coffee house gig, you get away with it. So it's harder now for younger people. They feel the crunch of needing to get ahead, make money in order to start a family, all this stuff, and it's just this compiling of anxiety and issues that don't really foster that happy-go-lucky attitude that shines through in the music. That's the point, Spider. I mean, you can just feel it, you know?
Yeah. I just, you know, I just knew what happened was, see, I've always wanted to play drums. I didn't know how successful I would be, but I always wanted to play some type of musical instrument. And when we were, well, I tried trumpet, I tried trombone, I tried saxophone, but it seemed like when I sat down at the drums, that was like a natural thing. It was a natural thing for me to jump right into the drums.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I kind of lost my train of thought here.
No. Listen, you know what? I wanna play a piece of music for you. I don't know when the last time you heard it. Settle in for a minute, and then collect your thoughts, and we'll come back and talk about it. Okay?
Okay.
boom, chop, chop, patch. I mean, I got to tell you, man, I was playing that 4 or 5 times in a row last night. My wife and kids were like, my wife's like, please, I don't want to hear it anymore. But I just said I got to keep. I mean, it was just.
Now, let me ask you a question. That was Eddie Fisher, right?
Oh, you nailed it, brother. Yep, that's live from. This is. I mean, at the core, a part of my insides seems to be in East St. Louis, Illinois. This was Psycho Studio, St. Louis, Missouri, February 1969. Eddie Fisher, Phil Westmoreland on rhythm guitar, Bob Selby on organ, Paul Jackson on bass, Kenny Rice on drums. Take it away.
Well, now, okay, let me tell you about that situation.
Yeah, please do, because this stuff is dude. Your drumming on that is so awesome because you're playing soft. You're not trying to. It's not some explosive. You're just, and you're right. It's not even. You're not even. Go ahead, man. It blew my mind. I'm not a musician. Just please talk about it.
Well, that's because I'm playing with everybody. I'm not playing against them.
That's right.
I'm playing with everybody, and I'm sensitive to the music. But that is a situation where I had totally forgot it. And let me tell you why I totally forgot it. You say around 69?
That's February 69. Yeah.
Right. I would say, there was a 10-year span there from like maybe 66 to 76, where I was doing so much stuff, Jake, that a lot of stuff I remember being there, but I don't remember playing a lot of that stuff. And I know it might sound a little strange, but well, to give an example, when I first went with the Funk Brothers,
yes,
I got off the plane and went straight to the venue. And Bob Babbitt, you're familiar with Bob Babbitt, right?
Oh, of course, the bass player.
Right.
Yeah.
So he looked at me and he said, Spider, I haven't seen you since we played on Frida Payne's Band of Gold.
Oh, my gosh.
And I looked at him and I said, I played on Band of Gold?
No, but let me tell you. Listen, you are absolutely. There's an easy explanation for this, Spider. Again, it's intergenerational. There was nobody. My generation. I mean, I can speak to this at 35. Younger generations. I have friends in bands. They play a set of.
How old?
What's that? I'm 35.
35?
Yeah, I'm born in 78, Spider. I know it's gonna blow you.
You're still wet behind the ears.
I'm just starting my life, man. I'm just starting my life. No, but I can speak. No.
But Dick,
Yeah.
Dick, I have to say this.
Yeah.
Like I said, from like 66 to around 76, there was just so much going on. The market was not as saturated with so many players,
Right.
and so many groups at that time. So there was a handful of people that was doing everything.
But I also want to make this point intergenerationally because I have a lot of friends who are in bands now. They'll play a set of music and they can plug in their Apple computer, they can record the music that night, and they can go back and they can obsess on it for many days and they'll never forget it. Where you guys, I mean, this was recorded in a studio, but a lot of times you talk to Mickey Roker, any of the serious session cats on either coast. You were there in '67, New York. They never even saw promo copies of the records they did. So they just kept moving. What you're saying is you just kept moving forward and you weren't you weren't all hung up on your own legacy. That's the thing. There's an ego.
Exactly. That's the point that I'm making too. Is that we did so much. It was like, especially here in Detroit.
Right.
It was like the automobile factory. Going, put it together, you leave, and I couldn't tell you if you had 2 dates a day, if you did a 10-to-1, and then later on that night, you did a 7 to 10, a 3-hour record day. I could not tell you what I played from 10 to 1. Or who the artist was. Because we were doing that so much. It was just on a daily basis, every day. I just couldn't remember everything that I did. But then when I listened to the 86 stuff, I said, yep, that's me, all right. You know?
Well, no, I mean, how did that, it's interesting because, and then again, throw on top of that, Spider, the fact that, without, residuals or like, sort of agents, I mean, you did not, there were so many records like the Belafonte stuff from Toronto. You're not even, you're the drummer, but nobody knows you're the drummer. It just happens on this one, that Cadet. See, like, I mean, Phil Upchurch said it best. There was a guy who's writing a book for schools, what it's like to be a musician. And I have a feeling that you did something similar, maybe not in the, Phil would say, maybe a game show in the morning, a jingle in the afternoon, a session.
That's right.
And then the nightclub at night. I mean, you guys never stopped playing.
I met a guy, a couple of weeks ago, a friend of ours passed from a drum and bugle corps that I was in when I was like 13, 14 years old, marching up and down what would happen here in Detroit. And we were sitting at the table, and the guy looks at me, he says, Spider, he says, man, do you know you played on my first hit record in 1964? I said, who are you? Who are you? I have no idea. But he's going to get me a copy of that. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
because it's good to, but it's...
Well, listen, I'm going to mail you, I'm mailing you this Eddie Fisher. This is on vinyl, by the way. This is on record.
Oh,
great. And I want you to have this in your collection because this album is, this is the most stealth thing. I mean, it says the Eddie Fisher Quintet. I mean, by the way, that name of the song was the title track, The Third Cup, which is just
the third cup.
The Third Cup, which is hidden.
The Third Cup, that's right.
I mean, I just want to be in that studio and watching you, and that's Paul Jackson on bass. I mean, that's incredible. I mean, what?
That's right.
I'm like, these guys are really locked into listening to each other. It's not about outmanning or outdoing somebody else. That's why I gravitate to the music because, ultimately, I'm the guy who, to use the baseball analogy, you know what? If I'm breaking up the double play, so the next guy hits a 2-run homer to win the game, that's my role. I'm just as responsible for the win as anybody else. So you know what?
There you go.
And that's the thing. It's like you're playing these fills and you're snapping all over the place, and you can hear Eddie picking up the momentum, and you're right with him. And it's just it doesn't matter if it's Alvin.
There is so many gold and platinum records that should be on my wall right now.
Yeah, right.
That are not there. You know what I mean? Because, a lot of it I didn't know, and, and people didn't tell me. And people didn't tell me that but you on this and you deserve this, and besides, I wasn't into that anyway. I was just, all right, next, who's next?
Right, who's next?
And when I moved to California, I mean, it just got to be ridiculous. And a lot of the stuff that I did in California, Chuck Rainey was on. It was a combination of me and Chuck Rainey, either me and Louis Johnson, one of the brothers Johnson, or me and Nathan Watts. He's the bass player with Stevie Wonder. And Chuck and I did so many things in California, and we were talking about this the other day, and they were saying, well, why does this stuff sound so good? Why does this stuff feel the way it feels? And I said, well, you have to understand, making records is just like building a house. If you have the right foundation, which is the bass and the drums, and whatever you put on top is going to fit. Because the foundation is strong.
That's right.
And you can put whatever you want to on top, and it's going to fit. You know, and I did so much stuff like that with a lot of different bass players, a lot of strong bass players. I need a strong bass player with me at all times, you know, because once you're in that bass player lock, you know, there's another phrase I use. I say, oh, you think you want to have fun? Well, on the one. Well, I'm going to set the pace, and when I do, you can lock it in the pocket and do what you want to do. You know, so we had a cohesiveness about us. You know, we didn't have to, guys like Chuck Rainey, you know, we didn't have to talk about what we played. They had charts for it. They had maybe like a guideline for us, or they played the field for us. And once Chuck and I locked into the field, Chuck and I didn't have to talk about it because we knew what had to be done. You got, you know, we were all on the same page. We were all on the same page. We all came from the same school, you know? And that was such a wonderful time. It was such a wonderful time in my career, man. You know, I wouldn't trade it for anything. You know, it was such a wonderful time, man. I learned a lot, and I'm still learning because music is an ever-learning process, you know? And like I said before, once you become satisfied, I love playing. I'm still doing it. I'm still being involved. I'm still putting together projects. I'm still playing on people's projects. You know, sometimes when some of the large acts come into town, they will request me, you know, and whoever I feel comfortable with. Mary Wilson was here not too long ago at the Motor City Casino at the soundboard, and she requested that I come in, you know, and Red Holloway. You familiar with Red Holloway?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, man, let me tell you about that guy. Man, that guy, well, I got called to do Red Holloway at Baker's Keyboard Lounge.
Oh, my gosh.
You know anything about Baker's?
Well, you know, it's sort of like I kind of want to buy a ticket, fly up there and see Spiderweb at the Baker's Keyboard. I mean, it's been around forever, and it still tries to keep the authenticity
Baker's,
of. Yeah.
Right. Baker's is the oldest jazz club in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I challenged that. I went online. I said, oh, somebody's not telling me the truth. Baker's is the oldest keyboard.
When did it open?
It's the oldest jazz club in the world. So I went online, and I challenged it. I looked it up, and do you know, we beat out Village Vanguard by about 3 months.
Oh, my, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. That is fantastic.
Yeah. But anyway, Red Holloway came into town, and at that time, I don't even know if he's still alive. You know, he could be, but at that time, he was about 75, 80 years old. And I swear this guy swung me into bad health. He swung me into bad health, man. We were doing these up-tempo swing tones, and we stayed up there the whole night. And I said, my doggone right arm was just killing me. I said, this guy, and he was 60 years old at the time. I said, boy, I still got a little way to go. But you know, it's good to still be recognized, and people still want to use me. That makes me feel good. That puts a smile on my face. You know, because my name is still out there. My energy, the way I approach music is still out there. People still want to use me every now and then. And I'm very appreciative of that.